Welcome to HW Hockey.
What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Radio, episode 44 of season 6. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined by the one and only Jack Smith. And if you guys are watching us live on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and set an alert for future shows. And if you're listening as a podcast, please make sure you're listening and subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to get notifications for future episodes the minute we upload them. Boys and girls, before we get started on tonight's episode, allow me to tell you guys about Phans of Philly. Are you ready to take your game day experience to the next level? Look no further than Phans of Philly. With over 14 years of experience, they have been the go-to for organizing unforgettable travel packages for Philadelphia sports fans. Why choose Phans of Philly? Let's break it down. They've spent years building top-notch relationships with bars, hotels, teams, transportation companies, and more. Every trip is a learning experience, making each one better than the last. You can trust that their travel packages will exceed your expectations. Are they knowledgeable? You bet. They've scoped out the best hotels, explored nightlife, and found the prime spots in arenas and stadiums. They know all the ins and outs to ensure you have a blast on your trip. Check out phansofphilly.com for more information. All right, Jack. Let's kick off this episode, man. A huge guest coming on, the voice of the Philadelphia Flyers. Jim Jackson will be joining the show for the first time. And that's kind of dropped the ball on our end. We should have got Jim on years ago, but we have him coming on now. We have Dave checking in. Jack, Jimmy, what's up? What's up, Dave? Thanks for checking in. We got a really great show coming up for you guys. It's middle of July, off season. So here we are. Unfortunately, the Flyers, not the best news coming out this week, Jack. Why don't we kick off with that first before Mr. Jackson comes on? We have Alexei Kolosov, Jack. I want to get your thoughts on this real quick. Obviously, we'll touch on it more later on in the show. Kolosov, where it was rumors he wasn't coming over, missed development camp, and Flyers fans by now have PTSD with that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts right now with Alexei Kolosov?
I mean, I don't know what's officially official at this point, but all signs point to massive smoke, which means fire. And to me, that's probably 99% true. What we thought is most likely the case. And it just seems that everybody's got these kids nowadays. It just blows my mind. Like, I don't want to be too harsh because it's not the same as the Cutter situation. But like the idea of somebody, how many players are probably like, Jesus, this guy's going to throw away a chance at an NHL career because he's homesick. And you probably have like half the nation being like, I would die for a shot. And he's just like, I miss mama's home cooking. Look, it's a real thing. He's young, but at the same time, like, are you serious? Like, I cannot believe that. And I'm sure he'll make plenty of money, and I'm sure he'll have a blast wherever the hell, Belarus, wherever the hell he's playing, But the idea that you were good enough to have a chance at the NHL, and whether it was a combination if he thought he was going to be the backup for the Flyers, considering his age is idiotic and stupid, he's going to get a chance this year anyway had he come over, and it's any of that stuff, that's very Cutter-ish. That pisses me off. But the fact that you're just home, so I'm homesick. I don't think I can do this. I need to be closer to home. I don't speak any English. That's a legitimate thing, but it's been going on for a long, long time. That's not new. It's not the first guy who doesn't speak English coming to play in the NHL. You chase your dream and just piss it away. It feels like I'm sorry. I don't care if I'm being insensitive. It's just, I hate it. And I don't even know if it's 100% confirmed yet. But everything we're hearing, it sounds like it is. And if it's not, then I'll take it back. But like, it sounds like that's the case. And it's another eye roll, but we're talking about goaltending here. You never want to lose a top quality prospect like that. We got plenty of goaltending in the pipeline. It's not the end of the world. I'm not putting this on Danny. I don't think this has anything to do with him. I think this kid just legitimately does not want to play in the NHL. It's not like he needs to go play somewhere else in the NHL. He doesn't play in the NHL. What are you going to do? Well, Danny didn't draft him. It was a Fletcher pick. I'm not saying it was a bad pick. I'm just saying he came with the organization. He came with the job. It is what it is. I'm sure they tried to accommodate him every way possible, and he just sounds like he want nothing to do with it. Sounds like he told them maybe up until like the last moment, and it's kind of like, oh, I overslept. I missed the plane. because that's the only plane coming out of Belarus to, you know, the United States. It's too much bullshit going on. And I'm sorry. We don't want somebody like that on your team anyway. It's going to sting a little bit. It's a little too fresh since the Gauthier shit. A couple people raises their eyebrows, make them scratch their head. I'm not there. But it's just like these kids nowadays blow my mind. Like, either I don't want to get too – I'll just start repeating myself. So I am not shocked, but also shocked, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm a little surprised still to hear this with Kolosov. I mean, there were rumblings of this while he was in Lehigh that he was homesick, or I'm sorry, Allentown. And, I don't know what the real issue is. So it's hard for me to really judge. I try to put myself in his shoes, and it's not like he didn't know what he signed up for, right? Like you made a good counterpoint to that, I think, on the last show we did. I could understand being homesick, and maybe it's a culture shock and things like that. But when he signed the contract, when he entered the NHL draft, he knew all of this was a possibility. So I don't know. I mean, we've heard things kind of behind the scenes there that, maybe aren't that great. So it is what it is. I didn't really watch this kid a lot in Russia, so I can't say. I don't know what kind of player that they're missing out on. Like, they never really had him. So, yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts. Our special guest did just join, so we're going to bring in Mr. Jim Jackson to the show. Jim, how are you? Thanks for taking the time to join.
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Not too bad. How's your summer going? How's your off season?
It's good. I'm in the pool. I'm on the golf course. I do some broadcast coaching, read some audiobooks, and that's about it.
Yeah, sounds like you're
enjoying
a couple
vacations. Got a couple of vacations coming up too, but outside of that, just chilling.
Yeah, there you
Nice.
go. Good for you.
Very good.
Before you know it, there's going to be another season around the corner, so you got to get that all in.
What is it? 100 days, and it's closing in. So,
already, man. Everyone's starting up those countdowns using the player numbers and all that. I can't believe it. It came quick. So, yeah, let's kind of dive into our topics here tonight. So we're trying to keep everything positive. Flyers off season. Michkov's coming over. We want to talk about that. You made a comment, I think, last night on the radio talking Travis Konecny. That was a big topic of discussion last night and today.
I want to talk about that, by the way. My old pal Broge uses me as clickbait. I love that.
That's the first thing that we said after we saw that. I'm like, wow, that's going to get a lot of quote tweets.
I texted him today and said, not nice. Here's what. Let's get right to that, all right? I threw out the 10 million number because I had heard that number way back when.
Right.
But I wasn't saying that that's exactly what Konecny's camp is asking for. I have no idea. I'm not involved in the negotiations. I'm in my pool on the golf course. As I said, I am not tied in with those negotiations whatsoever. It was a throwaway comment, and Broads took it and made it to watch Flyers Twitter today, or Flyers X, whatever you want to call it, was just, I'm like, people, calm down. It was just a throwaway number. It might be less than that now, given what the market is born for guys like Kachuk and Reinhart.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're asking. It's going to be a lot. No matter what, it's going to be a lot. So the decision is, whether it's an 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, it's going to be a lot, and probably for quite a bit of term. And the decision to be made is whether or not you think that he's going to be part of the team when they are contenders. Well, he's 27. If he's not, that means we're waiting around probably 5 or 6 more years before they're contenders. I don't think it's going to take that long. I think they're going to be contenders pretty soon, and then cup contenders, a year or two after that. So maybe he's in the 30 range. But bottom line is, that's the decision to be made, whether it's 8, 9, 10. Do you commit to him long-term at big dollars, whether it's 8, 9, or 10? So you can take the 10 number and throw it right out. It was basically a number I grabbed out of the sky. I had heard it way back when, but not from some insider, certainly not from the Konecny camp, and certainly not from the Flyers camp. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah,
it sounded,
sure.
that was the number that I think we all had heard a couple of months ago, that when it first started, essentially. Yes. So you were just reaching back to that, and it sounded like it revitalized Flyers anger on Twitter and whatnot. So,
but why are they so? I mean, I love the passion. I mean, that is one of the reasons why I love being here, the passion. But why waste the energy getting that revved up about a contract. It's going to happen one way or the other. Once it happens, okay, if you're angry with the contract, be angry with it. Or if you're happy with it, be happy with it. But why use waste the energy worrying about a contract? It's going to happen. You're not going to have any control on it. I'm not going to have any control on it. You guys aren't going to have any control on it. The fans aren't going to have any control on it. Believe me, the fans can complain about a number all they want. If they think that enters into the negotiation from either side, no, it's more about numbers, more about where they see him, where he sees himself, and where it all ends up. So it's wasted energy as far as I'm concerned. But again, great to see the passion of Flyers fans. And also I think it was pretty interesting because I was on a station that doesn't talk about Flyers very often. And it was great. I mean, maybe they see something there, the response that got, because there are people who care about the Flyers out there. There really are.
That's for sure. And I guess what's funny is, a lot of this offseason has been, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but we've discussed it a lot. Not a lot of moving and shaking, a lot of housekeeping, as Jim put it. It just seemed like they just re-signed some of their own guys, extended their own guys, but not a whole lot of moving. So I think a lot of the attention came to what's left and all that's left now, because I think we thought TK was going to sign the second he was available to July 1 for the extension, and that has not happened. So talks have stalled. So the timing of when that came out, which we all know that number came from before, with not a lot of moving and shaking going on. And I think most people are a little upset on edge a lot because of how the draft went as well.
Really on edge?
All that hoopla, we're trading up, we're getting this guy, and then they end up and I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but just reaching on a player based on rankings, and then not a lot of moves were made, and then this comes out. I mean, I think people were on edge. I think they had they were just ready to pop, and that was just
you get me another topic, the draft, which there's so many draft experts out there. They know nothing. I mean, and the scouts are even guessing to some degree, but they've scouted these kids for years. They know more than any Tom, Dick, and Harry. They certainly know more than these people who put out publications, who go see them or watch them on their computer screens a couple times. So when we say they reached, did we really reach? Have you watched him? Did you watch him at development camp? He's got skill. This kid's really good. I don't think they reached, actually. They reached if you go by a ranking of this guy or a ranking of that guy. But again, in all sports, I think the draft has gotten to the point now where everybody thinks they're experts, and they just aren't. But they put it out there like they are, and then the fans believe that they are. And then if someone doesn't pick what they pick, they're reaching, or they're not smart. I'd say the scouts who've been watching them in person for years have a better idea of what these players are about than some draftniks. So that's another. You guys, we've been on 5 minutes, and you've already hit two of my pet peeves: clickbait and in the draft. But that's basically where we're at with that. I don't know if there's much concern there. Next year's draft is said to be, by people in the business, a better draft. They stockpiled to get heavy into that draft, and they are very heavy. I think Flyers fans should look at that, and that's part of the rebuild. You stock up in a heavy draft, a very talented draft, and get 5-6 picks in the first couple rounds. You're looking at a potential haul there. So that's what that was about. They still got a very good player in the first round, and get some sleepers after that. The outlook is still very positive. We were not expecting to be talking about Matvei Michkov coming over. He's going to be here for this season, still as a teenager. I mean, what are we worrying about here? The Travis Konecny deal is going to either get done, or if it's not done, they're going to add a bunch more assets to this rebuild. So it's really a win-win. You're going to have a great player who loves playing here and is. And a lot of the comments I saw today, who does he make better? He makes the entire team better. He is the energy bunny. He's the engine of this team. So for people who don't think Travis Konecny makes other players better, you're just not watching the same team I'm watching. I mean, he makes everybody better. He brings energy. He gets other teams off their game. He's got skill, clearly. So, don't go there with me. He makes people better for sure. So if they sign him, they have a great player who's still very much in his prime. If they don't and they trade him, they're going to get a lot, I think, for him. So I think it's a win-win. So I don't really think there's a reason to be on edge. You've got a great prospect who we weren't expecting to see for another 2 years coming. Be happy about that. You've got a bunch of good young players, some players at development camp who really impressed me, who we might see this year, but more likely down the road. Oliver Blanc, McDonald, we might see this year. We'll see Jet someday. He's a project. Obviously, he's still very young, but there's other guys, and I mean, the team as it was almost made the playoffs. So I don't think there's that much to be negative about or on edge, as you say. I do think that in social media, and this does not. We got to point this out. I try to point this out to people who cover the team on a daily basis who are younger than I am. The fan base is not represented necessarily by what you see on social media. That is not the majority of the fans. I go out to events. I talk to fans who are extremely positive. The social media Flyer fans are really into it and maybe too close to the forest to see the trees or too close to the trees to see the forest, whatever that saying is. And I mean, that they get hyped up about every little thing. The big picture here is the Flyers almost made the playoffs last year in a year where they were getting their rebuild going. And from that team, they're going to add a superstar prospect. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar player in his first year, but he has potential to be a superstar down the road. He should help their power play. They're going to add that to that mix. They haven't lost a whole lot from that team. I would be positive not only about the future, but about this coming season. They didn't need a whole lot more to make the playoffs. So, they have some holes. They've got question marks. Every team does. They didn't go out and load up, to be honest with you. While I thought the high-end contracts in free agency weren't quite as high as I thought, the Kachucks and Reinhardts, the lower end, there were some guys getting $5, $6, $7 million for 3, 4, 5 years that I thought were vastly overpaid. I'm happy the Flyers didn't get involved in that market. They're not ready for the 30-year-old guy to plug in a hole right now. So I think that looks great. Long-term, absolutely. And even short-term for this season. Can't wait to see how Michkov fits in. And it should be a fun season.
So I wanted to ask you about Michkov. Do you have a specific call ready for him yet for when he scores?
No.
Like we had the cranium carom for Czechmanic. You know what I mean?
I didn't. I use turbocharge whenever Owen Tippett goes into high gear, and that just came out of my mouth one night, and so I used it. I don't really think of those. Eminem, you're going to have some things you can go with. For him, I've got to find out first and foremost when he gets here, when I get a chance to talk to him, how he wants his name pronounced. We're saying it's Matvei Michkov. It could be Matvei Michkov. I don't know. So I go to the player. He's the one who tells me, and I go with whatever he says. So that's first and foremost. But then what he scores or what he pulls off one of his ridiculous moves, I have no. I mean, Michkov magic is obviously going to come out at some point, but there's got to be more. I got to figure out something, but it'll come to me when it happens, not before a game or not in my sleep.
I love that. I like that better, actually. Yeah. It's in the moment.
I mean, I don't do that. I did it once. I was just telling my broadcast coaching Zoom yesterday. I did a group Zoom, and I was just telling them that one of the students asked me, do you script your calls at certain moments? And I say, well, I did it my second year here when I was in radio. Flyers made the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, beat the Sabres in the first round, got to play the Rangers, the defending Cup champs, in the second round, won the first 3 games. So we're going into Madison Square Garden for Game 4, potential to sweep them. And I said, I got to come up with a great line for when they win the game, because it looked like they had all momentum and could win it. And of course, it was going to be a sweep. So, the game ends. It wasn't that close, I don't think, Game 4. And I said something to the effect of, they sweep the crowns right off the champs or something. It was awful. It sat there. It sat there, and like Coachy's kind of looking at me, and he then started talking, and I'm like, this was awful. I've never scripted anything since. I've scripted opens when we have a serious topic, like when we had to announce Oscar's diagnosis or Mr. Snyder's passing, things like that. You clearly want to be right on that stuff, so you script that. But as far as anything in the game, a call, something happens, I do not script it, because I learned my lessons. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Smart man. So more on Michkov. We'll find out.
We don't know what it is.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I have a funny feeling it's Michkov, but he might want it just Mitch. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't necessarily. Gene Hart used to tell me to call the guy for the Red Wings at the time Sergei Fyodorov, because that's the proper Russian pronunciation. But he had told everyone that it was Fedorov. And, so I kind of argued with Gene. I mean, Gene's a Hall of Fame broadcaster. I was just a newcomer. I wasn't going to win that argument, obviously. But it was like, Gene, I mean, it's Fedorov to everybody. We're going to be the only ones to call him Fyodorov. And he said, that's the proper Russian pronunciation. He was absolutely right. That was the proper Russian pronunciation. But sure enough, he scored or had an assist in the game. And I was again on the radio, we'd pump in Lou Nolan on the PA to our broadcast, and I said, Fyodorov. And Lou goes, goal scored by Sergei Fedorov. And, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, maybe that's what everybody's calling him. So I went back to Fedorov after that. So, I mean, the proper Russian pronunciation is probably Michkov, I'm thinking, but he might want Michkov. It's whatever he wants. That's what I go with. Adam Ginning, the defenseman for the Flyers, is actually, by the Swedish pronunciation, Yinning. I mean, Kjell Samuelson's told me that. Other Swedish players have told me that. There's no doubt that his name is Yinning in Swedish. But we've asked him, and he has told us he wants Ginning. So Adam Ginning he is.
I think we've called him 3 different variations of his last name on our show. Somehow,
the coaches
some way.
do it too. Yeah, right. It's Ginning, Yinning, Ginning. But
Damon Lankow comes to mind for me. You remember Damon Lankow? He changed it to Lankow. Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys who change it after they leave. There was another one. Who was the other one who left? He left there, and all of a sudden they were calling him a different name. And I said,
Prospel, maybe?
No, it was more recent, but it'll come to me. But I'm like, there's just, sure. I mean, I called him that when he was here. Obey Q Bell. Some of them were calling him Obey Kubel, and it was even in the NHL pronunciation guide is Kubel. And I said, I asked this kid time and again. This wasn't just a one-time thing, and his nickname was Q, right? So it's Obey Q Bell. So, and we finally think have gotten that one to stick with most people, but it's tough. I mean, yeah, Lane Cow became Lane Co. I stuck with Lane Cow his whole career. Wow. That's what he told me. So
that's funny, man, isn't it?
Yeah, the funniest pronunciation is Marchand in Boston, who Jack Edwards, who just retired, but the TV play-by-play voice of the Bruins called him Marchand, and their radio voice called him Marchand. So I'm like, how can this be? You've got 2 announcers, same team, they're around him all the time. One says it one way, one says it the other. And I come to find out that Brad, I'll call him, had said to Jack Edwards, kind of kidding, as a joke, that Marchand is it. But Jack was very stubborn, and he stuck with that, and he told everybody it was Marchand. Well, it went back and forth, as you know, throughout his career. So I did a TNT game in the playoffs 2 years ago. Bruins, I did 3 games in that series, and so I was around him a lot. By the way, I know he's not popular on the ice, but he's a great dude off the ice. He's a lot of fun. He talks hockey. He'll talk hockey with you until he's blue in the face. He's actually a good guy. Flyer fans hate me for saying the same stuff about Sidney Crosby, who's an absolutely outstanding person, but I know you hate him on the ice, but they're actually good dudes. But in Marchand's case, I said, I got to ask you this. I mean, now he's in I think last year he's his 14th year or something. I said, it's probably about time I do this, but I don't get much access to you as Flyers announcer. I do get access to you here when I'm working for TNT. Marchand. He goes, I've been asked that 1,000 times. It's Marchand. And he said it was absolutely 100% drilled home because my 8-year-old niece, I asked her the other day, and she said Marchand. I said, I'm going with that the rest of the way. But he said it's been back and forth. But Marchand is right. I'm going with Marchand the rest of his career. So that's the one that's gone back and forth. And you'll hear different announcers within the same broadcast. One saying Marchand, one saying Marchand. I mean, it's just, and he's a great player. He's going to be a Hall of Famer probably, right? And I mean, we still haven't 100% gotten his name right. So you never know. But Michkov, we'll find out.
You ever get guys try to mix you up on purpose? I don't know why they would want their name pronounced.
I do believe he's got a funny, he's a funny guy. He's a sense of humor. I think he did that to the Boston announcers. And so he had one media call, the TV calling one thing, the radio calling another.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So, all right, let's move on to a guy who I guess his name is not as hard to pronounce. And the Flyers brought back a couple guys. They re-upped a guy, Garnet Hathaway, and they brought back Eric Johnson. And I kind of want to talk Eric Johnson first because I noticed that while he was here, he had great things to say about the Philadelphia Flyers organization, not just the team, but the organization. And Jack and I were speculating that, they might bring this guy back just because he might be a good ambassador for the team. And then obviously he's good with the younger guys. But I would like to hear your thoughts on, why they brought back Eric Johnson and how do you think he can be valuable to this team moving forward?
Yeah, in that press conference, which was on Zoom, he said he wants to be called Johnson from now on. You didn't hear that? No.
Nah, I missed that one.
Yeah, he's sticking with Johnson, thankfully. Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time. There's these rumblings out there now because of Cutter Gauthier, of course, and now Kolosov's having some issues, maybe homesickness, maybe he doesn't want to come over. And I've seen some speculation out there in social media about, what is it about the Flyers culture that these players don't like? What is it? What's this? I really think the Cutter Gauthier thing is going to turn out being Cutter Gauthier a different cat. He's pretty entitled individual. And, he just didn't like the fact that they wouldn't sign him in his first year and put him in the NHL right away. And, I think that's what that's going to turn down to. Kolosov, I think it's just a homesick Russian. And that, he's actually not, is he Belarusian?
Belarusian,
Yeah.
I mean, that happens. And, you can't, hopefully he gets over it and he's back here over here for the season. We don't know at this point. I don't think there's any deep-seated problems for the most part. Players that come here, this team hasn't made the playoffs in 4 straight years. They love it here because I know for a fact the organization from day one, and this was from Mr. Snyder, and it's carried on. They treat the players like gold. I mean, they are at the best hotels. They travel the best charters, the best everything. Their facilities are awesome. They are taken care of. Their families are looked after. They are treated top notch. So that starts it. Second of all, this group in particular is very tight. And that's what I think Eric Johnson is referring to a lot too. But these are guys, and Hathaway and Johnson and some of these guys that say this, they've been around. They've seen how it can be in other cities. Mm-hmm. And even though the team's not a juggernaut right now by any stretch, they haven't made the playoffs in 4 years, they want to come back and they want to play here. So it should tell you something. It's done right here, especially from the player's standpoint. And when they get better, that's only going to add to the draw of coming here because that will continue. They will still treat the players very well, certainly when they're winning, and you'll have the winning record on top of that, and you'll have this being much more allure and probably some cap space too here in the next year or two. So I think the Flyers will be a destination spot for sure. The one thing they don't have here, we all can certainly relate to this, is the tax situation in Florida and Tennessee. That is obviously a huge advantage. And even Barry Trotz came out and said that the other day. I think the league might have to do something about it if it's getting to the point where it's giving those teams that much of an advantage. I don't know what you do besides somehow making the money more equal based upon the tax, income tax. It really is going to get complicated, but it is a huge advantage. And those teams in this day and age are really taking advantage of it. You see a lot of great players now going into those states without income taxes.
Yeah, it's absolutely an advantage. And, maybe this will be a topic for another day because I'll keep you for another half an hour talking about this, but that's absolutely an advantage. Before we let you go, I know Jack wanted to ask you one more question here.
Yeah, Jim, if it's all right, I wouldn't be allowed to not ask you a couple of questions that, just from listening to you for so long. And obviously I'm going to tell my kids about you, just like my dad told me about Gene Hart. So if I could,
I'm sounding very old here.
Do you, and I'm going to get to mine, but do you have first, it's a little fun, but I do think you handle it with such class when you can clearly hear you've gone through the evolution of the league and the NHL and then putting microphones on the ice, how you handle bad language. I think is that something that you just did, or did they warn you? And
no, I just did it. I mean, it's my point here is, and really in a general sense, and given what's going on right now in the country, in the world, I mean, more so than ever, we're calling a hockey game. This is not politics. This is not world peace. This is not a war. This is hockey. This is sport, entertainment. Let's have some fun with it. When it's real obvious that a bad word has gone out, what am I going to do? Go, well, we're not responsible for that, and be all serious, or just have a little fun with it. And I usually, just say, very intense down there on the ice, or very upset. You just run with it, have a little fun. I haven't been told by anybody that it's a bad thing, so I just do it that way. It's out there. I mean, what am I going to pretend nobody heard it? It's going to happen. We mic everything, and the sounds of the game now are so great on television because of all these mics. But, it happened this year for the first time with me with a referee not realizing his mic was open and actually throwing out bad words. And, and I think I said something. They're not so angelic, those guys in striped shirts. But I mean, so, these things are going to happen. Have some fun with it. This is not, if we get to the point where we're so serious about all this stuff, which kind of leads me back to where we started, worrying about every little rumor out there about a salary. It's like, relax, enjoy it. This is sport. Have fun with it. So when that happens on the ice, I try to have fun with it as much as I can.
Oh, and it's so off the cuff. I remember hearing it back in like as early as like the early 2000s, but also during COVID when you could really hear the players talk.
And I think you could hear us breathe during COVID. It was very disconcerting.
I'm almost positive it was Kevin Hayes. Just a pass went awry, drops an F-bomb, and just like that, and some frustration. Oh my God, it was perfect. It was great.
It's when it comes across now, the one danger in that, Jack, is that when I do that, and maybe I'm hearing it, but it's not going out to the audience. So because sometimes the channels are different in the audio mix and all that. So there's a danger of that. But I figure if I say, "Oh, it's really intense down there," that's not going to. So people just think I'm commenting about the game, right? So I could probably get away with it that way too. Whereas if I hear an F-bomb and maybe the people at home don't, and I start apologizing for it, they're going to say, "What the heck's he apologizing for?" So if I just say, and Travis Konecny, who's one of the notorious ones that gets caught on those mics, I say, "Well, he's clearly very intense down there," then they think I'm talking about his play. So, that's kind of a way around. Otherwise, you make a big deal out of it, and it really wasn't a deal. You run the danger of making it a deal. So that's another reason why I do it the way I do it.
That's beautiful. I guess my question then is, because I have my own, but obviously we have yet to win the cup. But do you have?
Oh, we won too.
I mean, with you as our announcer.
Yes. Well, I'm never going to call. I tell people this all the time. I am never calling a cup because we're done after the first round. So Tim Saunders will be the guy who I will have all kinds of envy. I'll be green as green can be with them because he gets that call. So I'll never call it, but I'll be hopefully around and maybe at the parade and stuff like that. So, yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
But do you have, because of all that, I guess, a call that you made that you look back on as like, I nailed it, that's one of my favorite calls, or anything like that?
I do. I have one that I like, and I'm my worst critic. I hate most everything that comes out of my mouth. If I watch a broadcast back, and again, with my broadcast camp that I had yesterday, I was talking about this, that if I listen back to a game right after it's happened, or even the next day, I know too much about what was going on inside my head. And I know what I really wanted to say or how I wanted to say it, which would have been better than what I actually said. So I never, when I watch a game back that quickly, feel like I had a good broadcast. But if I have a couple more games and then I go back and it's a week later or whatever, I'm not remembering everything that's going through my head. And I tend to feel like I sound better to myself that way. So there's that. But there is one call that I really liked because for maybe the only time in my life, I was a minimalist. And it was the shootout in 2010 when Bush made the save and the Flyers went to the playoffs. Is basically what I said. And I just let it go. I'm glad I didn't know, or I didn't know then what I now know. And I've got a huge moth all of a sudden here in the office. Hope it's not cutting in camera range here, but I don't know where that came from. But anyhow, I now know that Bush was trying to imitate Henrik Lundqvist's celebration when he fell. So I'm glad I didn't know that then, because it probably would have ruined I would have started laughing or something, or say, "Oh, I couldn't quite get the Lundqvist celebration there," which would have spoiled the moment. I just said, "Boucher the save and the Flyers head to the playoffs," and that was my favorite call of mine. Most calls, I'm just guilty of verbal diarrhea. I just say too much for a technically good call. Now, a lot of people tell me their favorite call of mine is the Roenick goal in 2004 against Toronto in overtime, which sent the Flyers out of the conference finals. It was right after the big hit on Sammy Kapanen. That sequence is the craziest sequence I've ever called. And when JR finally scored, I really had no oxygen left. So I barely sound like myself on that call. So when people tell me that's their favorite call, I go, that's because I didn't sound like myself. but I mean, when I look back at it now, it was pure unadulterated excitement, right? So I think that's why the people liked it. I played a whole bunch of Joe Buck calls today for a student of mine. And on the last one, it was the Minnesota Miracle. I'm not even sure what they call it when Diggs caught the touchdown pass in the last play of the game in the playoffs to beat New Orleans, if you guys remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's maybe the only time where I heard Joe Buck really kind of lose his composure, because in great moments, he's really good at almost becoming a Pat Summerall and using one word and, Cubs win it, he's on it, right? Well, that one caught him by surprise, and the excitement of it, his voice actually got high and he quivered a little bit. And it was this kid's favorite call of Joe Buck's. Why? Because he really wasn't Joe Buck there. He was a fan. So I think fans like that. Obviously, the call of the 5 overtime goal by Primo is the moment was legendary. So to get the privilege to call that was awesome. Do I love my call? This test of wills or whatever. I don't even know. It was 2:30 in the morning. What did I say? But at least I didn't say something that would get me in trouble. So yeah, I think Dorney had the best line there. He said, thank goodness or thank God it's over.
I love you and Dorney together, man. You guys are great.
I've been blessed with the best partners.
Yeah.
Sure.
I basically had network guys. Dorney on TV. Dorney was CBC before he came here. He was the voice of Hockey Night in Canada, the analyst. And then I go from him to Jonesy and Bill Clement. Bill filling in when Jonesy couldn't do it. Bill Clement now in the Hall of Fame as a broadcaster, the top analyst in the business, along with John Davidson there for a stretch. And then Jonesy was NBC, the top analyst, and so good. And now I get Boosh, who I think is just so good. And Scotty Hart. No, Scotty's learning, but he's going to be great because his wit is unbelievable, and he's just seeing just a little bit of it now, but he's just starting. But I've been blessed with great announcers and partners and analysts. So, but Dorney was the guy and Coatsy on radio. I don't want to forget Coatsy. He was my first partner on radio 2 years, and then of course came back to join us as the third in the booth. There's only one Coatsy. So to work with these great guys, just absolutely great announcers. I've been just so blessed. But Dorney, I think, saved that call. The call was okay, but it was Dorney saying, thank goodness it's over, that made it great. But yeah, if I had to pick one that I actually listened back and actually liked, it was the Bush save to win the shootout and send the Flyers to the playoffs, because for once I didn't talk too much.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because I want to know if you remember the one I'm going to suggest. You have so many that are so good, but why you're so great is because you had a little bit of word diarrhea, rightfully so, because the play was erratic. I want to see if you remember this, but you summed it up with 2 words and they were perfect. It was, I want to say, around 2018, Flyers went through their goalie saga. It wasn't quite the 9-year one. It was where Brian Elliott was brought back early from his surgery, I believe. And there was a crazy play in front of the net where he's sprawling all over the place. Defensemen are making saves. He eventually saves the puck out by the bottom of the circle, and he's sliding. And you say something like, after you're narrating everything, and he finally blows the play dead, something like that. And then you just go, oh boy. And those 2 words, my friend and I still say that to this day. I have a kid running around. If he breaks something, I say it like it's nothing. And I'm like, you described the play perfectly, but after you took a breath, and we all took a breath, and then you just said those 2 words, I was like, he could not have described this entire season better. And that play, and with those 2 words.
I don't remember that call, that's for sure. But yeah, the funny things that you like Bill and I were doing a game, Clement in Columbus. Elvis Merzlikins was the goalie, and he got behind the net and he got all discombobulated and almost didn't get back out in front. And I said, Elvis is all shook up there. And that set off Bill, who's so good with words. So for the rest of the game, Bill was throwing these Elvis song titles or names into the broadcast. At the very end, Elvis was, we showed Merzlikins leaving the ice. Of course, obviously you're going to say Elvis is leaving the building. He didn't say that though. There's some song, I don't know Elvis's music well enough there's something about the choir, but he's preaching to the choir or something, I don't know. And so he goes into that kind of ripping Merzlikins as we show him going off the ice. And I gave it a second to breathe, and I go, don't be cruel, Bill.
Oh man.
So it's like dad joke bad, right? But But I was happy with my ability to come up with an Elvis song, because while my wife is a huge Elvis fan, I don't know the names of all his songs and all that. But that was one that just came to me. Like, don't be cruel, Bill. Come on. He just loved that one. So, yeah, these are crazy, the silliest things that come to your mind when you say favorite calls. But, oh, boy, I do not remember that. That kind of sounds like I had nothing else to say. But I still said something.
The play went, that makes perfect sense. And it just described everything up into the season at that point, and definitely that play. And they definitely rushed Elliott back, and it showed. And oh my God, it was insanity. And it was just
it kind of tells you where we've been with the Flyers here over the last 7 or 8 years. That's your favorite call of mine, to be honest. Let's hope we get back to, great call. OT and OT. I like that call this year. It came to me, Owen Tippett's initials are OT, and he scored the overtime winner in New Jersey. And I said OT and OT, and I was pretty happy with that, because I have no idea. I wasn't like I thought next time he's going to score. I do remember when he scored in overtime late the year before, I said, after I watched my call, which was okay, hey, he's Owen Tippett, OT. Maybe I should do that. But it wasn't like I was waiting for him to score in overtime. But when he did, it was a steal. It was a quick developing play, stole the puck from Hughes and went in and scored. OT and OT. So I like that one. But there's not many that I like. Quite frankly, I watch back and it's like, I could have been better. I absolutely hate watching myself on camera. It's just brutal. But the only way you get better is to watch yourself. And I tell my students this all the time. Now, when you're in your early stages of your career, you should watch yourself all the time. Watch almost every broadcast, or listen to almost every broadcast. As you get along, you're not going to do that, but you still have to, even when you get to my advanced stage, you have to listen and watch yourself once in a while, because habits have a way of creeping in and you don't even know it. You start using the same word over and over again. Battle is one of my fallback words. In one game, I went back to watch the game and I heard battle like 4 times. I go, all right, I got to rewind. I'm going to count. So I counted how many times I used battle in the first period. I used it 12 times. And I'm like, what am I doing? So you have no idea you're doing it when you're doing it. So it's good to watch yourself to avoid falling into bad habits.
Wow.
But it's a painful process. I hate watching myself. I really do. It's just not fun. I don't think it's fun for anybody. I talk to other broadcasters. Nobody likes watching themselves, I don't think. I mean, yeah, there are some people who probably will like watching themselves. There's probably a person in the
Who are they? Go ahead, name them. We won't.
No, not even broadcasters.
We won't clickbait.
I'm thinking people in higher positions than broadcasting.
Yeah.
But I am not. I am not one of them, and I don't think many of the broadcasting brethren in the NHL like it, because in a sport like hockey, it's impossible to be perfect. It's just too fast. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble. You're also going to say things that you didn't quite want to say, hopefully keeping yourself out of trouble, but you just never know in today's day and age. But it's so fast, right? So when you watch it back, I could have said this better, should have said that better. It's never. In fact, I say again to my students, a great quote from Vince Lombardi is perfection is unattainable, but if we shoot for perfection, we may just catch excellence. So that's my motto. I shoot for perfection, but after 32 years here and almost 40 years calling hockey professionally, I haven't caught perfection yet. So I do think that if I was able to, which is not going to happen, but if I was able to call a Stanley Cup championship, I could fumble the line and it would still be perfection if the Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
That's for
because
sure.
that moment is really what I'm in it for now. I mean, I want to see this market. I've already seen and experienced and partook in a parade with the Phillies and watched the love and experienced the love of that parade and just the whole thing. And Flyers fans, I know a lot of them are the same fans as Phillies fans, but there's some that are just Flyers fans and whatever. And they just deserve that. So I really want, it's really one of the reasons why I'm going to hang around. I hope I don't overstay my welcome, but I want to see this team get back to being contenders and win a Stanley Cup and at least get to watch the market, even if I can't call it, watch this marketplace go crazy, watch a lot of people who've been with this organization for years and years and years get to celebrate. That's really my motivation at this point. So hopefully it happens. I do think they're going to be, they could surprise people this year. I know the thought out there is step back before they make a step up. That could happen. I mean, I don't know how Sam Harrison's going to do in net. I don't know if Fedotov's going to be able to be a good backup. I don't know if they have enough to help the power play. Mishkov hopefully helps. I don't know. I kind of like the look of the team to be at least as competitive as last year. I kind of think John Tortorella is never going to have a non-competitive team. So given that, I think they'll be competitive for a playoff spot. Just as I said last year at this time, people laughed at me when I said it last year, not laughing at me this year because they just did it. I'd like to think they don't have to take another step back to take that step forward. But if they take a step forward, let's face it, they were only about an eighth of a step off last year, right? They came within minutes of a playoff berth, really. So, I mean, they don't really have to take a big, large step to at least get in the playoffs. I don't think they're one of the elite teams in the NHL by any stretch as yet, but you don't have to be an elite team to make it really fun in the playoffs and beat a team or two and go on a run. And once you do that, you re-engage an entire fan base. Maybe the diehards, the social media Flyer fans, they're there, they're watching. But you then bring in some of those people that aren't maybe watching every single move, and that's when it really takes off. And we haven't had a run in the playoffs in a long time. I don't count the bubble. They weren't here. You couldn't watch it, in person. So you have to go all the way back to 2011, 2012 for when they even won a playoff series. I mean, that's tough on a fan base. That's tough to keep those marginal fans initiated and engaged. So a run, even to win a series or two, whether that would be this year, next year, maybe 2 years, that's when it really is just going to take off. And you guys are old enough to know you're not youngins. You're younger than me, but you're not the real young people that haven't experienced it around here. You guys have experienced how crazy this place gets when the team goes on playoff runs, and that will be so much fun when we get back to it.
Yeah, hopefully it seems like it's going to come soon. Danny Briere seems like he's got the right mindset. I think he's the right guy for the job. Tortorella, obviously. And then Keith Jones, I think, was the perfect fit. It stunk because I enjoyed watching him on TV with you, obviously, but I think he's the perfect guy for the job. So
they know what they're doing. They do.
For sure.
People are starting to doubt Danny because of this offseason, and I'm laughing at that because he told you. I mean, he didn't lie. He told you what was going to happen. They weren't going to be big in free agency. The doubters on the draft, I don't put any credence in because they don't know anything. I mean, they just don't know as much as the scouts know. And how can you be mad when you end up with the haul that they have in what's supposed to be one of the best drafts in a decade next year? That's how you rebuild. So to me, that's great. And in doing that, they've stayed competitive. So to me, they're doing a great job. And they've had some adversity they didn't know was going to happen. I mean, they didn't know Cutter Gauthier was going to walk away. They weren't 100% sure they were going to lose Carter Hart. I mean, they've had some things that they've had to deal with, and they were a competitive team last year, should be again competitive again this year, and they're bringing in young players, and they're getting better. So to me, they know what they're doing. That's my main reason for optimism is that leadership group. And let's not forget Dan Hilferty at the top because he is tremendous, and his energy just seeps through the organization. The guy comes by our booth before every game to say, hey, have a good show. I mean, what executive does that, right? He's just awesome. A really engaged guy and cares, and he's a hockey fan, and it's absolutely a great setup with Hilferty, Jones, Briere at the top, and John Tortorella as the coach. So I do think that we're definitely in good hands.
For sure. Jim, we kept you a little bit over 20 minutes.
Well, I kept myself. Again, as I say with my calls, I talk too much.
Well, I mean, we could listen to you all night, so I figured I might as well end it here before we keep going. So
don't use me as clickbait now. I don't want any of that stuff.
Nah, not our style. No way. We promote positive stuff on here, so we really appreciate you joining the show and taking.
I know Broads well, by the way. This is Broads.
He's not a bad dude at all.
I've known him since he played hockey, so I mean, I've known him. We had the same representative for a while, so I texted him today. Really, you're gonna do that? Because I mean, my ex, whatever it's called now. I mean, it was just all day long, one after another, and this one guy just buried me. And then he goes, "Oh, I didn't realize it was JJ who said that." Well, what does JJ know about negotiations? And I wanted to tell him, but I don't want to get into a Twitter war. But I wanted to say nothing. I know nothing about negotiations. It was a throwaway comment. And Broads threw it right into Twitter or into X universe. So as a result, my X is full, and I've also got people saying what's it? 10? You're crazy. That was the number I heard, as you said, a long time ago. I mean, I was shocked Kachuk got what he got. Mildly surprised Reinhart got what he got in terms of as low as it was per year, given the cap going up and everything. But, I mean, that is going to be a dilemma. Travis Konecny is, as I said last night, the best player on the team right now. He might not be the best player a year from now or 2 years from now, but right now he's the best player on the team. He is the engine. There's no question he's the engine of the team. And those players don't come around. I mean, I laugh at people who say the Flyers don't have any high-end talent. He is high-end talent. Yeah. I mean, he really should be a 3-time All-Star. Now, we all know he was the All-Star 2 years ago, not Kevin Hayes. And he's a goal scorer who also has tremendous speed, who also has grit, who gets the other team out their game with other means. He does so much for a team. He's an elite player. Owen Tippett's he's this close to being an elite player. If he would do it a little more consistently, he would be there. And they have others on this team that might be able to develop into that. Mishkov obviously could be an elite player. So there's some high-end talent starting to form on this team. So that excuse can be thrown out pretty soon. But, I mean, do they have Tampa Bay elite talent, like an elite defenseman, elite goalie, an elite center, an elite winger? No. So they're not there yet. But it takes time to get to that.
Yeah, and we've said on this show many times about TK. If watching him on TV, he might blend in because I don't know, for whatever reason they change camera angles, whatever. But when you watch him live,
blame it on us. Go ahead, blame it on us.
He's clearly head and shoulders a different player than the other guys on the team. That's not to say that they're not good. He's just that good. He stands out in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you go to a Flyers game, and let's say you go to a Flyers game and don't know any of the players. All right. And you don't even see, let's say they take their names off the uniforms and you just watch the game. You're going to come away from that game and you're going to be talking about Travis Konecny. I mean, very rarely does he have a game where I'll say to Bush or say to Keith before that, or Bill, I didn't notice TK tonight. You almost always notice him in some way. Now, it's not always great. He turns the puck over sometimes in weird spots and he might take the odd bad penalty or whatever, but he is involved. And those are the kind of players you want. And people who get on John Tortorella about having, no patience and all that, he showed this year with TK had some games where he'd have 2 or 3 faux pas defensively, risk taking with the puck kind of things, maybe poor puck management, leading to chances the other way or whatever. Torts will still put him back out there. Now he might sit him for a little bit because he's got to be fair about this. If he's going to do it over and over again, he's going to punish him. And he did it obviously in his first year when he and Hayes sat for a whole period. But in general, he's going to get him right back out there because he knows how important he is to the team and what a great player he is. He really is. He's not just a good player. He's a great player. So you have that. You have him at 27 into his 28 year. You have, an 8-year contract takes him into his mid-30s. There's just a lot to think about here. And that's why I think it's taking a while. You say stalled. I don't know if it's stalled. There's just a lot going on. And again, I don't have any insight into it. Get that point out there. But I mean, it's a complicated situation as you're rebuilding and how high do you go? How long do you go? And we'll see how it all pans out. But to me, it's fascinating. I can't wait to see where it ends up. And then it's fascinating to see how Michkov and Tortorella are going to interact. There's all kinds of fascination going into this season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll be our clip tomorrow morning. Jim Jackson has no input on TK situation.
There you go.
We'll even that out for him.
10 million was a throwaway line. I mean, the problem is I brought it on myself. I said, I'm hearing 10 million. I should have said I heard 10 million because that was a long time ago. I have not heard a single thing. Let's get this. Maybe this is.
We'll put that one. Go ahead. Go ahead.
3, 2, 1. I have not heard a single thing about the Travis Konecny negotiation. The 10 million I threw out there, I just threw it out there because I heard it like 2 months ago. May have changed by now. I have no idea what TK is asking, and I have no idea where the Flyers are in terms of their expectations. So have fun enjoying this negotiation.
And cut. All right, that's what we'll use. Jim, perfect. Good stuff, man. I want to thank you again. We'll give you the Italian goodbye. We say goodbye, talk, and we say goodbye again. So thanks again for hanging out with us.
I think we had about 5 so far. That's
So thanks again.
My
Enjoy
pleasure,
the rest of
guys.
your night. Let's
Enjoy
do
your
this again
summer.
soon.
Stay cool. I guess we
You
get 3
too.
straight days under 90 here coming up. So enjoy
Oh,
it.
thank God.
Hey, let's get out and golf, right?
I am. I'm going golfing tomorrow, in fact. So
There you go. Enjoy, Jim. Thank you
All right.
again.
Thank
care,
you so
guys.
much.
Take
See ya.
care.
The best, baby.
Is he the man or
Easily.
what?
He's
He
the
really
best.
is.
Yeah, hands down. There's not anybody else on the. He's the Mount Rushmore by himself.
Yeah, we are. I think as Flyers fans, we're extremely lucky to have an announcer like Jim Jackson, and we named them all while he was on. Keith Jones, Gary Dornhofer, Bill Clement. Like it never stopped. So extremely lucky, and we're very grateful to have Jim on. It was a last minute ask too.
If TK makes everybody better on his team, Jim Jackson makes all those great names just as good, if not better.
There you go. JJ is the TK. That's the line. We should have fed that. We should have
JJ's
used it.
TK, and they're all both worth $10 million. No, I didn't say that.
See, we could do this, Jack. We know what we're doing here.
Yeah, screw it.
Oh man, yeah. So that was a really good conversation. We agreed on 20 minutes, and we went almost 50. So we really appreciate that from Jim.
Love him.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that as well. Good stuff with some of the compliments while he was on, guys. Didn't want to read them during the show. He wanted to, let Jim get his time in there. So, all right, Jack. Well, let's talk a little bit of TK. Jim heard 10 million, just like we did, and that's been the number that's just been out there. What are your thoughts now?
I think a lot of it is, look, it was flat out clickbait. It ignited a fan base that is, let's be honest, those who are tuned in and on X, Twitter, whatever, are prodding Danny with a stick with the whole do something, that whole gif. Like there's a lot of people out there like that. Me, to an extent, has kind of been like, yeah, like we got to get the ball rolling here a little bit. We don't have to, but feels like a missed opportunity if we don't, and at the end of the day, that's not correct. They have time. But I think we were expecting some more. Danny was very active in his first offseason. He was so much leading up to the draft. He did the right thing at the trade deadline. So I think people just ultimately felt it would just at least a trade or two, especially when nothing happened with the draft. That's just not how things works. It takes two to tango, and I'm not going to. A lot of people don't like hearing that. It's kind of given like the GM an out, and I'm not there yet. He needs more time before I get like, okay, what? Like if you turned around tomorrow and signed TK for 8 years, 10 mil, I'd be like, well, okay, this is my first time where I'm like, yo, that's wrong. That's bad. And it's not because I don't like TK and not going against anything that we previously discussed. TK is our best player. I would love to see him play with Michkov. Like our wings would be incredible. It just comes down to there's a cap. There's a cap, and you have to operate under the same cap as everybody else. And I hear how it's going up. That's not an excuse to be stupid. And you the reason this contract has not been signed yet. And I'm not saying it would have either way at July 1. But for a fact, a guy who scored 57 goals and is a center signed for 8.6. I've heard it made. I can't remember where I heard this. I think it was PHLY. Like this contract he signed at 8.6 for Reinhart was something he would have signed last year, not after scoring 57 goals. It's like, why did his agent not factor in that? And I know what you're going to say, Jim. Why did he not factor in that 57 goal year? He should ask for 9+ easy. And, he won a cup. He was scoring in the playoffs, 57 goals. And he's a center. It's a premium position. We take him tomorrow.
I don't know if he played center for the Panthers, though. I just want to say, I think it was Barkov and Bennett. I think.
And that's look. If you have a team of talent, you just put your best players together because we've argued. But if he could, my point is he could go elsewhere and present himself as a center.
Sure.
And he was a center in Buffalo, And I mean, it's all just part of the resume when you're going in to negotiate your contract. And I think we all think he signed like pretty close to $1 million under per year what he should have gotten. Yes, it was Florida. They are a playoff team. They're obviously a Stanley Cup contender. They just won the cup, and it is a no tax state. I get it, but Reinhart, Konecny, like where you compare Konechny's only ever going to play wing. Love him, great player, 2 years younger, but on a team that just has been bad. He's been and I'm not saying he's not deserving of the All-Star because he was, and I agree with what Jim said about him being the guy over Hayes. We all know why Hayes got in that year. He was. He's been our best player for a couple of years now. But this team isn't exactly flush with talent, and everybody's sending in a representative to the All-Star game as well. So think about it. Think about that too. $10 million, we know that was a negotiating tactic. It was never realistic. But the idea that he could get $9 million was kind of creeping into everybody's mind. Look, this is how it starts. I said that in previous podcasts. I'll try to find it, I guess. But it was like, I know this number is going to start with a 9. Hopefully it's a low 9. And that, to me, that was just general inflation and the cap going up. After seeing some of these contracts get signed, I'm kind of like, I don't think he's getting 9. And I think stalled maybe is not the right word, but they're probably both going back to their respective camps and are going to renegotiate again. Like, look, here's an offer we came to the table with, the Flyers. We think that you're a lot closer to this offer now compared to what the market has shown us. And the fact that you're a wing only. And Konecny saying, I don't care what the market says. I know what I'm worth. I know what I've done. This is what I want. Ultimately, I think it's going to take time before they meet somewhere in the center, but it's going to take time. There might even be some who blinks first, some chicken here. So I think that's what it's going to be. Hopefully, it doesn't get negative because you know how that can go. You look at the Ducks with Drysdale and Zegras, former Flyer Trevor Zegras, or future Flyer, excuse me. But like, I don't think it will. I think, like we said earlier, the right people are here. It's the right culture now. It's just a matter of finding that sweet spot and making it work. If they traded him tomorrow, would I be upset? Only if they didn't get back what I thought they should. Like, it's a business at the end of the day, and we have not won in so long that we got to do what we got to do. Do I think they can re-sign him and still win? Absolutely. You just got to make that number respectable, and you just can't overpay for a guy when you're a rebuilding team. It just doesn't make sense.
No. And we'll definitely see what happens. That's for sure. Middle of July, not necessarily a huge rush to sign him, but there is a sense of urgency to get a deal done before the season starts. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Just over an hour into the show, Jack, we had Jim on for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And, why don't we just let that be the show tonight? What do you think?
Let's let it be the show. What else is there to add?
That's it, really. I mean, we talked Kolosov, we talked TK, we had the GOAT on. Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that, and hopefully nothing negative happens until next week.
I'll tell you, this team. I mean, we are now in the middle of the summer, middle of July, still giving us something to talk about easily. Yeah. We've gone over an hour. I mean, come on.
For sure. So one more time, boys and girls, I want to tell you real quick about Phans of Philly. Let me just get the read up real smooth, Jim.
Read up, Jimmy.
So Phans of Philly, a couple more things here. Their dedication doesn't stop for their love of Philly sports team. It extends to you, the travelers. They're committed to going above and beyond to make sure your trip is nothing short of amazing. Meeting new people, sharing the excitement is what we live for. Are you worried about the cost? Don't sweat it. They're flexible. Pay-as-you-go plans make it easy to manage the expenses. Their travelers rave about the ease of convenience and their payment options. It's just one of the many perks of booking with Phans of Philly. So what are you waiting for? Join Phans of Philly family today and get ready for an experience you'll never forget. Visit phansofphilly.com and book your next adventure now. So I think we mentioned this on a previous episode, but some of the destinations they may be attending this season: Anaheim, big Cutter Gauthier game there, the Michkov Gauthier matchup. Salt Lake City, brand new team in Utah. Western Canada, always a fun trip. Minnesota, Dallas, we're going to go to a nice warm climate down there. And then Detroit. So some great destinations for the upcoming season. Make sure you guys check out phansofphilly.com. I got the website on here somewhere because Phans is spelled P-H-A-N. So that's going to do it for this episode. For Jack, I'm Jim. Once again, I want to thank our special guest, Mr. Jim Jackson, voice of the Flyers. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.